Yep. And we're live.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan Nedelko, and welcome to episode, what are we, 149?
149.
149, yep.
49 of Live at the Hive. Once again, I'm Dan Nedelko. I also want to say that we just spent millions commissioning that intro song. Took us a long time to get it over the line, but we did it.
For sure. All right, we have, this week, we have...
Who you
Chad.
be? Who you be?
Oh, I'm Chad Gillen. Hello, everyone.
Producer Matt, as always. And yeah, this week it was a nice week for us, for sure. We have lots of cool stuff to talk about. Year's ending as well, right? So yeah, it's always busy when that's going on, for sure.
Yeah, well, the world wakes up. I mean, regardless of everything that's going on, when September hits and Labor Day's over and kids are now thankfully back in school, a lot happens, obviously. Businesses are looking at, okay, it's Q4. Here we go, right? We're pushing into Q4, and we're only a few days away from it now. That's the last 3 months of the year for many businesses looking to achieve goals and come out strong. So we thought one of the things we could talk about today is how you as a business, whether you're B2B or B2C, or you sell a service, or you have an e-commerce store, whatever it is, how you can finish 2020 with some power moves using social media. And we're going to dig into some examples we hope will be very helpful. Like I said, businesses large or small, or complicated or simple. I think one of the things that ends up happening is some businesses will say, well, our business is too complicated and blah, 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 blah. It's not.
Yeah.
Right. Just to reinforce, one thing is that social media is this incredibly powerful communications tool like we've never seen before. And you've got the ability, whatever it is that you're doing in kind of non-obvious ways, to really develop a relationship with people.
For sure.
And it can be powerful. But first,
I think we have our segment that we want to do this week of things we love. So
if you're feeling how I'm feeling, and you know I won't stop. All we gotta do is take our love to the top.
I was gonna do the Philip DeFranco. Hey, you beautiful bastard. But first, here are 10 things I like this week, brought to you by Honeypot Marketing.
Yeah.
Yes. So ran into a bunch of good stuff this week. The first one is from Shopify. As we go into this season with a surge, obviously, in Shopify stores, they published a helpful post for new or experienced e-commerce vendors, 10 tips to help your clients handle surging customer demand. So if you've got a store, you want to read that. There's going to be a huge surge. You're going to need live chat. You're going to need to be on top of it. But it's a really great one.
For sure.
Cool. Next up, we've got a favorite of mine, Kevin Indig. He's a part of SEO Twitter. He's giving a talk about a story of zero-click searches and SERP features, which, if you're in the SEO space, is a huge topic of conversation. And for anybody that is an in-house SEO, how to master the art of in-house SEO. Here's a little
check that out.
A little sneak peek on in-house SEO is the art of negotiation and how to convince everybody else that what you're doing is important. That's kind of one of the underpinnings.
Awesome.
All righty. Next up, we've got Ahrefs. Ahrefs has launched Webmaster Tools. They had a couple of hiccups later in the week, but basically this is a free tool for everybody. Definitely useful for anybody that wants to go a little bit further than Google Search Console, which is also a fantastic tool. So definitely go check that out. Baymerd.com. This is great if you are in the e-commerce space. Go look at these 162 design examples that were manually annotated. So people went in, they looked at it, they found the best, and a lot of inspiration there for anybody running an e-commerce store.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know how much I love this one, but it was interesting. Because, I mean, this is like probably pocket change, right, for Facebook. Facebook is going to have to pay $650 million total in a class action privacy settlement with the state of Illinois. It'll be curious to see if that rolls out to other states down in the US, but definitely worth
for sure.
Definitely worth noting. Google is prioritizing local business. So there's some new ad tools for local businesses that should definitely be on your radar. There's some great detail in there. We're not going to dive into it because we got a lot to cover today.
Yep.
And lastly, our good friends at Instagram. The irony of this is why Instagram is posting Instagram updates on Twitter.
Yeah.
There.
That's kind of true, right?
I don't even think they posted it on their Insta. I have to check. I can't definitively say that right at this moment. But it's interesting. So it's really hard to tell. It's actually the order of the bottom menu there at the bottom. You can read into what they're doing. They're rolling out these different variations to see how different users interact, and if they put reels in the second spot, will the reels increase? There's also, they've added a bunch of new reels features that you can check out. Can't remember exactly all of it, but I think they can be up to 30 seconds now, a couple of other editing features and whatnot.
Nice.
And those are things we love this week. Brought to you by bombas.com. No. Bombas makes socks. They sponsor everything.
Yeah.
Or brought to you by Ridge Wallet.
Yeah, that's
or
true.
Or Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah, Raid Shadow Legends. I was about to say they're everywhere.
We could take a thing, Raid Shadow Legends.
Probably.
They get a lot of grief on the old YouTube.
You got to give them credit though. They're throwing money out there for these partnerships, right? So that's kind of crazy.
100%.
Cool.
Alrighty, here we are.
For this week, we kind of wanted to discuss, of course, like we said before, end of year is coming up, right? Last 3 months. So people are wanting to push hard, trying to make the most of their budgets and things like that. And one way that you can really help the last 3 months of your fiscal year would probably be, but it is ending the year strong on social media.
Yep,
for sure.
Absolutely. And I think this has been an ongoing topic for us pretty much the entire year. Mm-hmm. But as we get into, the latter portions of 2020 here, what are some things that you can do with your business to really kind of come in strong? And some of this are things that we've talked about before, but I think it's really important that during this critical time of the year for many businesses, you look at things with a fresh new look.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. The one thing I would suggest, we do this with our paid advertising campaigns as well. It's called the 70-20-10 rule. So 70% of the things that you do are the more predictable. You know that those things are going to work for you. And you obviously are always pivoting, always adjusting, always seeing what works. 20%, reaching out a little bit, trying some new things, right? Mm-hmm. 10% be absolutely crazy. Go start up a TikTok and do TikTok every single day for 3 weeks. See how it goes.
Yep.
Right. So those are some of the things we want to talk about. And then we actually want to give you all both a tactic and then how you can execute that and why it makes a big difference.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So
all right.
I think to get started on some of the talks, I know, Chad, within the thread, you posted a few articles that you kind of found throughout the week and that you wanted to highlight. So why don't we start off with some of these key articles that you found? So I think we'll start off with the Hootsuite one.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, this one wasn't me, but
oh, sorry. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You're probably what articles are these? Yeah.
Well, basically, we can talk to this. We don't necessarily need to put Chad on the spot here, but yep. This was the inspiration for how to finish strong and why we kind of went this direction this week.
Exactly.
Yeah, basically what Hootsuite did is they looked at their 2020 trend predictions and things that did happen. So one of the things, and I think this is important, brand purpose and employee activism. This is kind of all over the place. Ironically, Hootsuite had their own issue because they signed ICE as a client. I believe this was yesterday.
Yep.
And then they retracted that due to some internal discussions, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I bet. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's a few of those that happen, right? There's a few partnerships I know that I heard of this year that, a couple companies were accepting or working with others. They announced it on social media, and a lot of people actually gave it a little bit of backlash, right? And it was like, no, like, this isn't okay. Like, how can you guys like put other communities up on a pedestal and ignore other ones and accept these partnerships, right? So it's pretty interesting how that worked out this year. I think 2019 was definitely one of the years that this was highlighted, right, with the Black Lives Matter movements, LGBTQ rights and things, right? So
sure, and I mean, I think it's also important to note that brand purpose isn't just about those very major and highly controversial and polarizing topics, especially in the States. Brand purpose also includes, and I know both Chad, you and Matt have some social media channels you really like that are quite local. And the brand purpose is also, I want to support my local community. I want to help other small businesses. I believe that we need to have, better food at food banks, that kind of thing for your business. So the brand activism and brand thoughtfulness and awareness, I think is something that can get controversial, but by and large, fundamentally, you can do it in a way that just shows that your brand does have a purpose, right? That you do care about these things. For sure.
Yeah, it's a lot more important this year. Like, people, it's not just products that people are looking for. They want to know that the businesses that they're supporting are not causing harm to their community or to the world. And they want to know that, they're there to help people and they're supporting the community that they're in. So it's a pretty important topic this year.
Wow. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So moving right along here, start my watch party there. I don't know if we necessarily need to go through each one of these. I think this is like it's a really good article. Why don't we pull up the infographic?
Yeah, for sure.
We've got about 14 different points to go through, and we've got half an hour.
Yeah.
So
we gotta motor through these guys for sure.
Per point.
But yeah, that Hootsuite article is really good. So I know they put the Beast put it in the chat. So definitely check it out during the weekend on your own time to go much more in depth. You'll really like it.
We'll be able to drop, I believe, that also leads to the 2020 social media trends. It's the annual report. I know we're going into the end of 2020, but it's got some really great stuff in there. Some really great use cases, both not just like the Adidas of the world, but they also talk about some smaller businesses that have effectively transferred all of their spend and efforts onto social away from traditional, which I think makes a ton of sense.
For sure.
So we put together this handy dandy little infographic here. And why don't we start, Chad? Why don't you start with the first one there?
It's about basically like telling a social story. So you want to like kind of look at your product and what it is, and then you tell a story around why your product or service makes customers' lives easier. So like when you're doing that, like take a look at, why do people like your product? What are they doing with it? How is it changing their lives, or how is it affecting their lives? Yeah. And you can take all of those things and kind of build a story based off of that and how it resonates with your with customers.
Yep, absolutely. Sure. And I think this is almost precursored by one thing that I would strongly suggest that any social media marketer, anybody in that world does. Create your ideal customer persona and create several of them. Sit down and try to answer a few questions here. Let's see. Okay. So not just your customer persona. Sit down and say, what would my dream customer look like?
Yep.
What are their qualities, right? What makes them tick? What makes them laugh? What annoys them? What are their pain points? And how can you solve them? And try to extend it out to see, gee, if I had this type of a customer, if I had 1,000 of this type of customer, then wouldn't my business be growing and wouldn't everything be really fantastic, right?
Yep.
So we talk a lot about developing a customer persona from existing customers, but I think it's important because before you can tell that story and before you can say, hey, you know what, I really, I feel like I've nailed our social voice, right? How we talk to our community online. Without doing that dream customer persona, you're going to have a real hard time. You do it on the back of a napkin. It doesn't need to be a formalized process by any stretch of the imagination. Right.
Sure, yeah, and it's all, psychological ideals, behaviors, even like geographic locations. True, those are all key elements when you're trying to understand your personas, right? It's a key building blocks of persona building, and it seems easy and simple and obvious, but when you dive really deep to the core of those aspects, you really understand your customer and your personas well enough that you can target them with ease.
Yeah, it'll start pointing to a much more specific audience, so it kind of makes it a lot easier to find them, and then also to be able to speak to them in the proper voice as well, right?
Sure.
And to know how you talk about it. And I mean, again, I think you could pull up the Fall Guys, but that's a really good example of specifically it's a Twitter account, but they're gamers and they sound like gamers and they talk like gamers and they joke like gamers, and they're not out there broadcasting. They're joking around, they're throwing shade, they're being sarcastic. And that's a group that I think, they literally, the Fall Guys game, for example, they planned that game for many, many years. Like, they worked on that, like how the game works itself. But I also think they really did.
Are you there? Oh, I think he dropped. But just to kind of go off Dan's point, right? Like, they really kind of engage the audience. It's high frequency, and it's not necessarily like just random content. It's content that they know that their audience is going to engage with, right? They know their audience well. They engage with them frequently, and I think that's really important to understand as well, right? Even though that you might be creating these personas of these people, you really need to understand, what their behaviors are on social media and create that relationship with them too, right? Because that's how you understand them a lot more. That's how you kind of get engaged with them, right?
Exactly.
For sure. Alrighty. Moving right along here, I see that Dan just dropped out, so he's going to probably be joining in the next few seconds. So he'll be coming back. I think he just messaged us and said he got the blue screen of death or computer crash. So
No.
definitely hoping for him to pull through. So let's talk about the second point here while Dan kind of gets everything going on his end. So point number 2 is be human, right? So authenticity will go a long way with your customers, and it's important to really make sure that we use a conversational tone with them and communicating with them. And that's kind of like what we were going along with Fall Guys, right? Going into their Twitter, we can kind of see that, they post stuff like this, like, have you guys talked about wall guys, talking about timelines, interacting with people like the Undertaker, right? It's just creating that interaction with the audience, that kind of, it's an outrageous type of communication that they're tapping into, that their audiences really like, right?
Jokes and lighthearted and fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, we see other brands do this too. It's not necessarily Fall Guys, right? But a lot of local businesses and things like that definitely want to start creating conversations in their own communities, right? And engaging the community, asking for the community's input. Yeah. April has a point here. April just said, being human is one of the most important things. People can tell when you are not being authentic, and they will not connect with you. Will not connect well with you, and absolutely that's true, right? A lot of brands, I think they try and overthink it. Like Miguel says right here, he says, "Don't overthink how you talk to your audience." And those are two really good key points, because I feel like when companies are trying to interact with these companies, I think they overthink it. And at the end of the day, like I like telling people, at the end of the day, it's social media, right? You're supposed to have a certain voice on social media, but ultimately you're there for your customers. You're not there for yourselves. And if you're just posting content out into the abyss, really high frequency, not really thinking about it, really hardcore branding some of your content, a lot of the times it's not what people want, right? Being authentic and being human is definitely one of the key points I think that we should underline here. Alrighty. April says that she really likes your point earlier. They talk like gamers because they are gamers. Everyone can relate, and it's true. Especially, you know, if you can find someone to like manage your social media, moderate your social media, that's definitely part of your persona or understands your persona really well. I think that's a very important and key asset to have. Sure.
Yes, because they're part of the community. That it's essentially like if they're gamers, they're probably looking at that stuff themselves, right? So
Yep.
They're just basically creating content that they personally like themselves, and that's why it probably resonates so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that goes right back to kind of being human. You see that with a lot of companies. I think it's not like they try too hard, you know, the whole try hard thing. It's more like they're trying to be really careful, and through the whole process of trying to be careful about what they say, they completely lose any sort of human voice, and it comes off as robotic. And when was the last time you read corporate speak and was like, yay? Nobody ever likes that. So
yeah, exactly. When was the last time someone got excited for corporate speak, right?
It's never happened.
Sure. Yep. Wow, we get a lot of comments here from the chat. Stacey has one where there's a time to have a super polished message, but when you do a community management, make sure that you don't only engage, but start a conversation with your audience. That's how you'll build the brand advocates and ensure community around your brand, for sure.
Great point.
Awesome. All right. So I think we said a lot about point number 2. So when Dan gets back, we'll see if he has anything else to add on that. But moving right along, we have number 3. That's going to be creating a two-way conversation. This really segues into what we were talking previously about being authentic, human, and creating conversation with your audience. But creating that two-way conversation channel, you know, like using polls, quizzes, open-ended questions to kind of start this conversation with your audience and get valuable feedback from them, right? I think that's really important in any communication model, but having a really strong feedback process feedback model is going to benefit you so many ways, because let's face it, communication is a two-way channel. And if you're using your social media as a one-way communication channel, I don't really think that you're using it for the right reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you'll probably get passed by.
Yeah,
that's why polls and quizzes are so good, and like the open-ended questions, because you're basically giving them a reason to respond. Whereas if you take just a standard post, if the person doesn't resonate with it, or if they don't come up with something in their head or some sort of response, they're just not going to engage with it. Like they might read it and kind of pass by, but with the polls and quizzes, you have that bit more of an incentive to actually engage with the post and you know, give your input.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, communication at its essence is a two-way communication model, right? It's communication isn't just you yelling stuff into the abyss. It's you also getting a response, analyzing that response, and providing feedback on that response, right? So, I mean, if you're not engaging with your audience in any way.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Good old win.
How'd the wrestling match with the computer go?
Yeah, so it wasn't a wrestling match. I just got the blue screen of death, and I just held the power button down and let my let Windows do its normal, however many minutes that was. That's how long Windows takes to reload on my machine.
Oh, I know. It can be crazy. But yeah, so
I was listening. I was listening on my my mobile, so I'm not
so you're
behind.
up to speed. Nice.
Yeah, I'm up to speed. The one thing I did want to say, just as a part of that other conversation about using the, you know, larger companies or companies that are a bit scared and don't really use social media as a two-way communications medium, as opposed to just trying to broadcast their typical messages, is as a smaller business, the bigger businesses get, they tend to get slower, more bureaucratic, and frankly kind of dumb, right? Really limiting. Now, I know that some larger brands, because of the pandemic, have loosened up and they actually are starting to understand and get it, right? Mm-hmm. But yes, I think you hit on that point, which is something I try to talk a lot about. April says, it's okay, Dan. Yes, April, we know you constantly have computer problems. Yeah. No offense, April, but I don't want to be in that club, okay?
Yeah. It's not a club you want to be a part of, that's for sure.
No. Yeah. The polls, quizzes, open-ended questions, starting a back and forth conversation for e-commerce. I've got a tip for e-commerce folks out here. And you know, you could creatively kind of wing this into all sorts of different things, but to create user-generated content and really get people into it, every week, have a contest. Don't even use a platform. Just use your feed, right? Or you could use stories, I guess. And every week, give away one of your product to a random person in your community. The ask for that winning is, I want an unboxing video, like it could be an iPhone video, it could be a mobile video of you unboxing it and trying the product, make it 30, 45 seconds, make it totally real, send it back so we can use it. Do that every week for 12 weeks, and you'll have 12 pieces of amazing content that I guarantee you those people will share with their network as soon as you publish it.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the times those can be more useful than testimonials and reviews, right? And they get shared a lot more, right? When's the last time that someone shared a testimonial? Like, I'm sure people do, but people are going to share more engaging content that they want to consume, content that, you know, they can see the product working and the person's genuine reaction, right?
Well, that's the
Those
thing.
are
If
really
they're
strong
interested in the
strategies.
product, yeah, they want to see it. So if you're seeing a real person using that product and kind of doing the whole unboxing thing, and you kind of get into that excitement, it's almost like live sports, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You could do it with services. You could do it over a Skype call. You could do it over a Zoom call. But really humanize, like if you look at all of like some of the more influential, say, digital marketers out there in the world, one thing that they do, the Gary Vaynerchuks, the Russell Brunsons, I mean, you could put Tony Robbins into that category. They're pretty big influencers in their spheres, right? These people have made millions of dollars. So, and whether you like what their shtick is or not, the one thing that is absolutely consistent with all of them is a natural communication narrative. They're not overly produced. They're not. Like if you go and you listen to their podcasts, Russell Brunson's a good example. He's the founder of ClickFunnels, but he does coaching. His podcast is him, like it's clearly on his phone, right? And he's just talking. He's not scripting anything. And I think that, you know, that's part of the thing I think that is great about what we're doing here is that it's just, you know, we really don't script this. We put it together and we talk for 5 minutes before we go live, right?
Yeah, we have some talking points, but definitely not scripted.
Yeah, and I think that's important, right?
Yep. For sure.
Yeah, for me, it would be easier for me for it to be scripted because I get kind of nervous in front of the camera, but I much prefer this sort of content.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And I mean, I know there's getting nervous, but I think it's one of those things where you just, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Exactly.
You know, if, you know, I've got as a sum of all of the videos that I've got on YouTube on 2 channels on, well, 3 actually, and Facebook and Periscope. I mean, I've got over 1 million views easily. Right? And I don't care. I mean, 1 million people have been at home watching me, which is kind of trippy to think because I'm really not that important. You know, and that's over a series of years. It's not like I had a viral hit or anything.
You know, I think a couple of years ago, Courtney was actually getting recognized by people at restaurants for being at Live at the Hive, right? Remember that?
I do remember that. I do remember that.
Yep.
For sure. But that's the power of content creation, right? It's a lot of it's evergreen. Like I've got my podcast videos from 3-4 years ago talking about marketing strategies. Oh, did we now lose Matt?
Yeah, what's happening here?
Matt is
he's back.
No, I'm here.
There we go. I was gonna say there's gremlins.
What's going on today? Yeah, I know.
Friday gremlins.
Yeah. But the concept is that creating consistent content can change the direction and the tone and the style of your entire business, right?
Yep.
And it's a very, very, very powerful, tool that you know costs nothing, effectively, right? It costs a little bit, but you've already got that phone, probably, right?
I mean, we're all spending close to $1,000 on cellular devices, right? That's the average price point. So you have a really powerful computer in your pocket. Why not use it for the reasons that you probably purchased it for, right?
And camera, but it's crazy. Like cell phone cameras are blowing away my DSLR. It's almost embarrassing. Why do I take this big bulky thing anywhere anymore?
Yeah.
That's very true. I've got several. We've got several DSLRs, including a Canon 5D. 5D still outperforms anything.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, you know, if you think about it, the 10 years ago, the crappy phone camera, like the first iPhone didn't even have a camera. I don't believe it did. Definitely didn't shoot video. That's in 10 years, and now we're shooting like 4K UHD,
60 FPS.
60 FPS.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a $25,000 camera only 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And that leads into I'm such a huge advocate of this because I've seen it time and again. And reframing them into podcasts, like the power of going live to talk to customers, to, you know, have a weekly Ask the Expert, you know. This is it's a way to easily create a content machine that can have unbelievable benefits.
Oh, for sure.
That next big client of yours in 3 months' time could have run into that video, found you, looked at you as an expert, and said, I want to work with someone like this, right? And again, I think storytelling, tell your customers your life story. Like, if I don't see any problem with a small business saying, it's been a terrible year, right? Blah, 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 blah. I've gone through this, that, and the other thing. The more that you open up that relatability on social, the stronger the connection will be with your audience, right?
For sure. Now more than ever, right? Now more than ever. I think you touched upon a really good point there, where it's like relating with people, right? And I think right now, I think our village, or our city has grown to a village, right? It's kind of that the world being shrunk by communications, and social media definitely does that, right? So people are a lot more empathetic. People are a lot more relatable, right? More than ever. So that's definitely a really good point to bring up, for sure.
Cool.
Nice.
What's the next point on that? Can you pull that back up?
Yeah, I think the last point here was just making sure that you measure your content and your strategy, right? So,
well, sure. Always look at look at your performance, right? Find out what's working. Look at those numbers, and try to understand why or why not something may or may not have worked. Hey, Matt, can you pull up facebook.com/5minutelife?
Yep.
That point kind of ties into social listening as well.
Well, yeah.
Checking your analytics.
Yeah. Like, one of the most powerful things you can do as a business, like on Twitter, for example, post less and join conversations more. Okay. Maybe just scroll down a bit there.
I can just view as visitor. It's giving me all the good stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So Twitter tip, this works on Instagram. It works everywhere. Instead of trying to concentrate on posts that you're going to be creating to broadcast out to people, why not join groups? We do this quite frequently. Join groups, get involved, talk to people, answer and listen more than you talk. Right? Yep. Okay. So here's a good little example. So this is 5 Minute Life. So this is me and my wife put this. It's a website with a whole bunch of keto recipes and parenting tips and everything else. We've got almost 10,000 followers on this Facebook page. Now, here's a couple of quick tips for you. One, you can see this latest post here. We've got this page has a bunch of viral examples, very viral in the millions of views and hundreds of thousands of shares. This same strategy was we're reviving it because we're integrating Facebook Commerce Manager, which is going to allow us to sell directly on Facebook and Instagram and the website itself. And we're going to sell more handmade goods as well as some other stuff. But the point of this page is, we do two things. Number one, when we want to warm up the page again, find these memes. They're easy to find, right? These are totally relating only to parents and parents of typically younger kids. And then what we've done is, over time, is we've created audiences that are very, very, very specific, right? They're 24 to 35-year-old females interested in, motherhood, pregnancy, blah, blah. It's a long list of that particular set of shares there. The promotion ended 2 days ago. It's hitting the algorithm now because that's already grown by 60 reactions in the last couple of hours, and it's doubled the shares today. So hoping that it gets into the algorithm, it's showing up because people are reacting to it. So Facebook is saying, hey, that's great content, right?
Yep.
People like it. So we're going to show it to people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then what ends up happening is that gets visibility. You can then invite all of the people that have reacted, and you can grow your audience very, very quickly. The beauty of it is because you're using that small boost budget, $25, right, of a boost budget. That boost budget has now turned into, I think, 120 new page followers who are exactly our correct target audience, right? And we do it with memes because that audience, like, my wife and her friends share these memes. Like, this is what they share to each other. She sends it to me. I post it up on here. I'm like, if you guys are doing that, then
this one's got to be good, right? And I think we've talked about it too, where like there's different groups that you can go to, different boards that your audiences like tend to congregate, right? Lots of watering holes, like quote unquote watering holes, right? That people frequent. And a lot of the times you can kind of see what kind of content really resonates with them. And then kind of take that content and kind of transform it into your own, post it out. And, you know, if it performed well on, say, like a mummy board or, you know, a particular Facebook group, odds are if you have the same audience, it's gonna work well for you, right? So
and I think the lesson here that I wanted to convey is this is how you can use simple content, does not have a purpose. There's a quote that I put at the I think we're as we get closer to the end, I'm going to talk to it because it's the stupidest statement I've ever heard in my life. But one of the things with social is, again, and actually let's pull it up. I'll grab it. It's the 44% of senior managers, if you got Basecamp open there, Matt.
Yep.
Last point. And why it's such a brain dead statement in my mind. And I'm shocked 44% to say that.
Here, let me just blow it up a little bit more so we can read it. But I'll screen share it right here. And then I have it highlighted on the screen. It's this last point here. But 44% of senior marketers,
Yeah, 44% of senior marketers cite driving conversions as a top outcome for social in 2020. That is the most boneheaded thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. That's like saying we're here to win the Super Bowl. We get it, right? You would like to drive conversions. How about build engagement and relationships on the communications device?
Yeah.
Right? That's the point. You will drive those conversions by building the relationship.
Yep.
So what this leads me, so that's the 18-year-old move, right? That's like being 19 years old and going to a bar the first time, seeing some girl and drunkenly slurring like, "I love you, I want to marry you." That's the analogy that I would give this.
Yeah.
And it's from a professional marketer's perspective, it shows a serious lack of understanding of what social media is about to sit there and say, I want to drive conversions, right?
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, that is the goal of marketing. And you can do that, but there is a process there, and you build the relationship. And again, I think the other thing I think this really speaks to is that these senior marketers that were polled obviously have very little understanding or appreciation for what community means.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because they're looking at community as being something very soft. And it's not. It's something very, very powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something that really stands out to me right now is when you're explaining this is kind of saying that, you know, the strategy isn't social media. Social media is part of the strategy, right? If you're putting all your eggs in one basket to drive conversions through social media, I'm sorry, but you're going to have a really difficult time doing that. But if social media is part of a grander strategy that you have, your strategy is just going to flourish, and you will drive more conversions for sure.
You do, and you will, like that is the end ultimate thing, right?
Yep.
To say I would argue that the top outcome for social anytime is to build the community and build 100%. Engagement. Stop looking at vanity metrics of things like reactions are technically vanity metrics. Shares and comments are far more powerful. I can guarantee you this. In the Facebook algorithm, the Instagram algorithm, the TikTok algorithm, every single one of them feed off of the share and comment. The reaction has a fractional dependency on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's, in this great report, and then the very last thing is like 44% of marketers are boneheads. And it is what it is. But you see all the most successful brands that are really successful out there have built and foster and maintain and work with that community, right?
For sure.
I think there was a couple more things in that list we kind of skipped there. Let me see if I can find it. We've got a couple of minutes left here, and it's a beautiful day outside. It's actually very summer.
Yeah, it heated up quite a bit, which is nice. I think one of the last things. Let's see here.
I think 6. We should talk about the private messaging and bots for sure.
Yeah.
This is something that can be fairly easy to set up, but using that direct messaging as a core part of your strategy. So Facebook easily integrates WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. They've unlocked Facebook Messenger, so you don't have to like sign in. You can use Facebook Messenger for your chat. And those chatbots can be very powerful tools to offload if you have an e-commerce store, to really offload that first point we had talked about in this whole thing, which was the increased demand and customer service for e-commerce stores, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, the last tip. The one thing about going live, and I think this is important. And with any kind of content creation, I think the important thing to remember is that it's about consistency, right? You kind of got to go back to like the 80s and 90s, Cheers and Friends. They didn't happen randomly on Tuesday, right? Like you wouldn't know, when is it going to be on? I don't know. Like, when's the next episode coming out? You knew when. And so create a schedule that's realistic. Like we do this once a week, and that's realistic for us. And stick to that schedule. Stopping. And stopping is important. Sounds kind of stupid, but it's true, right? I'm still working on my international bestseller. It hasn't been released yet, called Metro No Marketing. It's on the runway.
Yep.
But this type of marketing and the world that we live in, consistency trumps everything, right? Yep. Consistency. You don't have to be CNN. Like you don't have to go live, 4 times a day. But you can do one a week, then repurpose that content easily, but stick to that schedule and don't deviate from that schedule. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do.
Oh, for sure.
Right. I've heard people have a blog a day challenge for a year, and they make it like 2 weeks, and they're like, no, I can't do it. That's too much.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. You get burnt out from it for sure.
Absolutely. You do. And then lastly, so balance your public feeds with the private and one-to-one engagement. So stories, reels on Instagram, groups on Facebook. This is that whole thing that Zuckerberg said back in 2019, which was the future is private. There are a lot more features, like creating a private group for your customers to talk about things. If you're a small business, I mean, businesses of any size would benefit from that. And then from the Facebook perspective, the important thing is that group feeds are preferred to be broadcast into an individual's feed, if that makes sense, right? Much more than if you're a business page. Like if you're just using your business page, that business page, you're going to have to boost to get that, to get into people's feeds, right? So creating a group around your product and maybe a little higher level thought is a great way to move people in from an email list, then move them over to engage them in that group. And again, make it a benefit for them. Give away free stuff. People love it. It doesn't even matter how much it's worth. They just like free things, right? And so there you go. So I think with all of those things, these are some of the ways that you as a marketer or entrepreneur or business owner or whatever your role is, these are some of the ways that you can make these power moves for the last 3 months, and it can hugely impact your business.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Cool.
It is 5:00 p.m.
That was a good little spitfire that we had there for sure. And there's tons more that we could have talked about. I mean, we had a lot of points in here that we could have dove into a little bit more, but I think those key ones that we listed there are definitely the best to kind of review. And again, I'm going to say it again. definitely go through that Hootsuite article that we showcased at the very beginning of the show. It has some really good in-depth features that it talks about in terms of mastering your social throughout 2020, and it does highlight a lot of the points that we did talk about.
How did that go for you, Chad? We get rid of the butterflies?
Yeah, no, it's good. It gets a little bit easier every time, like you said. Yeah, it's funny though. Like it's like having that idea of being scripted. If I tried to do the script, I would remember all my points, but I would sound like a freaking robot.
Well, that's it. There's no scripts for this kind of thing. It doesn't work that way. And we are definitely getting you something better than that 320p camera you got right now. Audio's great though. I gotta say that the audio.
Yeah, your audio's really good.
Yeah, these Sennheiser headphones I almost highly recommend, except when the battery runs out at like 12 hours, it starts giving me a notice like every 3 minutes saying my battery's going to run out in 12 hours.
Oh, no.
That's very German. That's a good, very German style, conservative, responsible warning.
The quality is incredible. They really are.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
I love them.
All right. You guys have anything exciting on the go this weekend?
No. No. My weekends are pretty much filled with,
schoolwork,
homework,
Yeah, I don't know if we told everybody, but did we tell everybody that you went back to school?
I don't think so, but yeah. So I'm back at Conestoga, completing my degree at Conestoga for public relations. So yeah, I'm doing full-time work, school, part-time work, still at the Hive and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, if you watch Live at the Hive, nothing would change. But I'm sure if you're at the office, you definitely see me poking in a little bit less than when I was full time for sure. But yeah, it's good.
Good. We'll get back to work then. I hope it's sunny and hot all weekend. Just joking.
Yeah, I'm just inside, looking outside.
Yeah, sad
looks
face.
so nice. Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us for episode 149 of Live at the Hive, and we will see you next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 4:15 p.m. for episode 150.
See you then.